Hey guys, it's Proc, and welcome to what I hope is the first of many meta reviews. I wanted to make this series because I'm sure you all know how overwhelming it is just to see the number of things there are to learn in this game, even without considering that people are always coming out with new metas and new things to learn every single day. I've been keeping up with some of the various Discord servers for GeoGuessr recently, and it's just absurd how often people are posting these like journal level documents on all their research of various countries and metas that you couldn't even imagine. So what I want to do with this series is start with a blank slate. We're going to leave all those existing metas to the documents and resources that already exist for them, and instead provide me and you guys as well a way to keep up to date with all the new stuff that the community is discovering. I'll do a bit of my own due diligence to screen each meta, see how useful it is, if it actually works before I present it to you guys. And I'm sure this will change form a bit or maybe a lot as time goes on. So please let me know what you guys think of the idea in the comments and what's most helpful to you. I'll try to keep it fairly high level so it doesn't go on for too long. But each of these metas will have their respective credit if I could find it, as well as all the additional information, like if you want links in the description. Also timestamp it so you can skip through. But I'm going to start off with some one-off metas for regions or countries and save the bigger document type stuff for the end. So let's take a look at what the community has been cooking up. So right off the bat, I'm already going to break that rule that I just set because this has technically been around and been known about for a little while. But hey, it's my channel. So let's talk about Kenya. So Kenya is a place where it's really easy to know what country you're in, but a little more difficult to know where you are in the country. Personally, I look around for some palms. If I see some palms, I send Mombasa. If I don't see any palms, I send Nairobi or like something a little bit more west of Nairobi. Maybe you learn some stuff about dirt color and stuff like that, but I don't know a whole lot of people who are super confident region guessing in Kenya. Well, one really nice meta is on this road between Mombasa and Nairobi, which is a place that, at least personally, I would never guess without an explicit clue like a city name. But if you look, as this road gets started out of Nairobi, right around here, they start to have a blue light on the truck. So this is super recognizable and it's nowhere else in the country. So it's really good to use. This continues all the way down to Imali down here. And then after Imali, all the way down to pretty much Mombasa itself is another really useful meta, which is this small wire coming out of the back left window of the truck. And again, this is found nowhere else except for this road. So if you see either one of those metas, you don't even have to remember which one is where. You can just know that it's on this road, try to line up a road angle, and you'll probably get a pretty good guess. Next, let's take a look at South Korea. There's a doc published by Undead Goat covering house numbers, and I think the most useful thing for someone not playing a Korea-specific map is the house numbers in Asan, which is here south of Seoul. Most people playing Korea probably just send Seoul or maybe Daegu or Gwangju or something like that. But if we take a look at the house numbers, which you can see on pretty much every building in Korea, they're almost everywhere. They look like this. You've probably seen them before, not really taken much note of them, but usually it's the Korean script, a Latin script, and then the number in that order. But in Asan, you can see that they only have the Korean script and then the number, and it's the only city that has official Google coverage that doesn't have the Latin script. There are other like smaller differences that you can use to pick out different Seoul suburbs and stuff like that. If you're interested, again, all the additional information and links will be in the description. But I would say if you're going to learn one thing from that, by far the most useful and easily memorizable is the Asan house numbers. All right, so now let's talk about Colombia. Habibs98, if you watch him on Twitch, has been streaming some South America recently and found a couple cool clues for Colombian poles. So the first one is going to be this black, yellow, black with this size and order is going to be unique to the state or department of Antioquia. And I'll show that on the map here. This is the department that has Medellin in it. And it's pretty big, but you can see this design on poles pretty much anywhere. If you just go in on maps and click on a city, you're almost guaranteed to see it on poles. So I would say it's a really, really good thing to know. It's also almost exclusive to this department. So if you do see it, you can fairly confidently send Medellin if you're in a big city, or maybe one of these other ones if it's not that big of a city. Another one that seems specific to the department is this department that surrounds Bogota as well as the city of Bogota itself, and that is orange letters on poles. This one is also fairly omnipresent. I've clicked around quite a bit in this state, and there are polls, of course, that have black or white numbers or just don't have numbers. But it does seem like I would even say the majority of polls have orange numbers on them. And the same applies to that design from Antioquia. So I would definitely recommend learning both of these. I know that it's kind of places that you might already be clicking in Colombia when you know it's Colombia, but it's still useful to get some extra region knowledge, and I feel like they're both pretty easy to remember. I would be careful though because there's quite a few other designs with colors on poles that aren't the one that I showed you. And again, that one is this black, yellow, black design. I just clicked on some random city in the department and immediately found like every single pole having these. So yeah, definitely recommend learning this one for Colombia. I'll briefly touch on a map of Bolivia I saw from Discord user Blue, which breaks down large parts of the country's coverage into distinct recognizable metas. I was able to use this just the other day after like zero studying to pretty effortlessly get a no moving gold score, which is pretty incredible. I'm going to be doing more research and potentially making a whole Bolivia video because I think this country could actually surprisingly be kind of like Kyrgyzstan or Mongolia, where it's not too hard to get really good region guesses, and it's a pretty big country. So definitely check out the link that I'll put to this in the description if you want to get a head start on that. Another meta from the same user is one of the most unhinged things I've seen so far. He alleges that Czechia and Slovakia Gen 4 can sometimes be differentiated based on location of the Google copyright watermarks. Now, this would be pretty huge because, Czechia and Slovakia, that's a really hard 50-50 to do. And he says that if you see these tiny copyright 2022 Google things that are kind of over the blur of the Google car, he says that in Slovakia, you'll always see one on the right, like we see here. And in Czechia, you can sometimes see it in the middle instead of over on the right. Now, this is a Czechia location here, and it is on the right. And I actually did quite a bit of searching for this. And to be honest, I only found like one location in all the locations I checked that had the copyright in the middle. So very unfortunately, I think this might not be that real or useful of a meta. I don't know if it's been covered by new coverage or something since then, but I was not really able to prove this meta when I went to go check for it myself. I've been seeing some interesting stuff from a guy named Linus Skoldberg recently on Sweden. Sweden's not a country that I really know anything about, so I was pretty interested. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be too worth learning in terms of time investment if you aren't playing Sweden-specific maps or maybe Europe-specific maps. But it's well put together, so I'll still showcase it. The first was a transportation document that talks about bus stops and things like that and the colors of buses. And this is specific to each county in Sweden, which there's not that many of. Unfortunately, I found that most bus stops, maybe a little bit too similar to the other ones. There's a couple, especially the North 2 counties, that might be worth learning. But I also did quite a bit of looking around myself, and there was enough variation that I think it's, while definitely still learnable, maybe not like a super, super high yield meta. If you are going to learn anything, I'd maybe recommend learning the bus signs or stops for the northern 2 counties, like I said, since those are usually the hardest places to guess or the least commonly guessed places. One meta, though, from him that was a little bit more interesting, I thought, was around this lake right in the middle of Sweden, which, maybe not the most useful thing since you might guess around here anyway. But there are unique chimneys around these 2 lakes. So if we take a look, they look like these chimneys that have either 4 holes in them or have crowns on top of them like this. And from what I could tell, is pretty much unique to this area, and there are quite a few of them. As you get farther away, there's fewer and fewer. But I did think this was really interesting. I don't think it's something I'm going to forget easily. I don't think it's something I'm going to be thinking of actively, but if I do see one, I'll definitely remember it and make sure to guess in this region. So if you get a Sweden round, you spot a weird looking chimney, then maybe just guess around this lake. Another doc that made some pretty big waves recently was T. McDermott, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, new Kyrgyzstan document. So this is a huge guide on the level of the famous Mongolia document. As you can see, it is 180 pages. So I have not gone through this or studied it really at all, but I have skimmed it, and it does seem really useful. It's not quite as purely meta based like the Mongolia one is. So it is going to be a little bit harder in my opinion, and of course it's a much smaller country. So I would say this is perfect for people who, I guess like me, really enjoyed learning the Mongolia map through the Mongolia document because it's super fun to get, 25Ks round after round in a pretty obscure country, and you're always going to really impress people. In terms of pure like time investment worth, I would say maybe not so much past the few, Osh Mirror versus Bishkek and stuff like that, just because it's not that big of a country. So another big doc that's come out recently is Cheddarman's Brazil doc. So there are some seriously good metas in here. If you ever want to dedicate some time to learning Brazil, it's a huge country. I know it's on my list of things to learn. This is definitely where to start. It's mainly urban based, so I know there's some other documents already for more vibes and vegetation stuff. But it's got everything from utility poles to lamps to sidewalks and stuff like that. And he's got stuff for every single state that has unique stuff, and a lot of it seems really interesting. I've already learned a couple of them and have been able to use them, and a lot of them, for the most part, seem really unique and highly usable if you do get an urban round. So overall, great work. Definitely check this out, like I said, if you're planning on learning Brazil, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, so last but not least, we have a France document from Guillaume Borde. And this one is pretty interesting. It's not that long, so I'd recommend just giving it a read through yourself. It reads really easily and there's not that much text. And I thought there's a couple really interesting maps. As you can see, here's a map of red roofs versus black roofs. And it kind of solidified a lot of stuff that I had kind of felt out through playing over the years, like the Normandy houses and stuff like that. The houses that more have brick walls that are by the Belgian border and feel more Dutch. Another really interesting part of this document that I don't see all too often is kind of a linguistic hint. Everybody knows the pain of finding one of these signs in France and knowing that you're never going to find this road and you're never going to find this town. But there is actually some fairly consistent meta regarding the endings of town names. Of course, you're not going to see these all the time, but as you can see in these maps, if it ends with AC, for example, it's probably going to be in this southwest quadrant. And there's several different endings that have pretty unique geographical origins. And a lot of them seem actually really useful. So I'm definitely going to study this and run a few France rounds. Because as everyone knows, France is pretty notoriously difficult to region guess unless you get one of the super distinct regions. So I would recommend checking out this document. As I said, it's not very long. So just read through it and see what you think. All right, guys, that is going to be it for the first episode of Meta Review. Hope you guys liked it. Please let me know if you have any suggestions in the comments below. Like I said, I'm sure it will take its form more naturally over the first couple of episodes. Unfortunately, I can't control how often people come out with new metas, so I can't guarantee any level of regularity, but I am looking forward to making these maybe weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, something like that. So yeah, if you did enjoy, please leave a like to let me know. I will see you guys next time. Bye.